Yeah, so I'm excited about this one. Listen, we've got some experience. We're in the industry, but we're coming from it from a community perspective, right? We're here to help elevate security, specifically in the operational environment. So that's the goal of the session. Obviously excited to have two of my friends here to hang out. Out of curiosity, how many people are 100% on the OT side? I suspect it's going to be low, but yeah. It's actually higher than I thought. You guys, they let you out of the field? Like, I can't even believe they let you out of the field. But oh, you came out for Austin. Good, good. Yeah, the rest.
That $20 later.
Yeah. Well, the rest came out for me. But anyways, no. Yeah, so again, most people are probably in IT, and then obviously a strong presence in security. And so what we want to get out of this session is kind of just talk about, a variety of subjects, get some feedback from each. And then obviously, if you have any questions or comments, please interject. So with that, maybe the first one. You may have recalled the U.S. government had identified some things within solar panels that look nefarious or potentially nefarious. So some supply chain risks certainly there. And obviously there's some scary things when you start thinking about what OT can do in an environment, never mind critical infrastructure, but now it's become every day, right? It's in our home environments as well. What do you guys think? Is it fluff or the scare tactic, or is it real? So I'll go to Doug and then I'll go over to Austin.
No, I 100% think if it's running on a computer and it's possible to instruct that computer to do something, you can probably add an extra instruction or two in there. And I think I was down in Houston when there was that Rockwell bug where the malware was running below the visible cycle in the HMI. So, we've had bugs in BIOS for years. We've had bugs in network cards. Anywhere there's silicon and a microprocessor, there's a potential for malicious behavior. And, something like an inverter where it's widely distributed, the adversary they're putting behind this plays a very long game. So it's like, I'm going to make something and, I'm going to turn it off in 10 years. I need 8 years to get it to market. I don't think that's far-fetched at all.
Austin?
So what we're talking about here is solar inverters and batteries where 4G chips were installed covertly in the equipment. So one thing we try to do at Dragos is fight against fear, uncertainty, doubt. In the industry, there's a lot of that today. But this is not that. This is a very...
It's not?
No, this was very real. And in fact, we just learned a couple weeks ago that these were exercised in December 2024, and they shut down remotely from a country that manufactured these devices, these solar inverters and batteries. So someone exercised that ability just last year. So it's very real. This case is a very real case of embedding malicious device into critical infrastructure.
I'm still getting some panels anyway, and here's one thing I will leave you with, right? Is it real or not? Just think what happened with the pagers. That's a long game, right? Yeah. So it's certainly real, right? Obviously, I don't carry pagers. You got one on you? But yeah, they're certainly playing the long game there. Here's the next one. Colonial Pipeline made it very difficult decision to shut. So, remember the big compromise, right? The pipeline in eastern U.S. had to shut down, or they made the decision to shut down. Now, the threat wasn't in the operational environment, at least everything I've read. You might know something different. But they made the decision to shut down that pipeline, which I think is 45% of all fuel goes through that pipeline in eastern U.S., right? Or the entire East Coast. And I think the other thing, too, is when they start up the process, it's not something like, okay, reboot and we're back up in line. Like, it takes weeks and weeks. So they had people, I think you saw in the news, filling up gas in their pickup trucks lined with plastic, like some crazy stuff in the U.S. But Yeah, so what are your thoughts on that particular event? And again, we're not trying to pick on Colonial or anybody else. Obviously, they've already been run through the ringer on this. But what are your thoughts on that particular event?
Well, yes, I think they made the right decision to shut down, and we use the words abundance of caution. I'll leave it at that. The problem is they didn't know. They didn't know if it went further or not. And that really is on them because they had plenty of guidance, some of it from very knowledgeable people like the folks at Dragos on understand your environment, know how things work, know that the knee bone is connected to the thigh bone, that this app talks to this app. But there is another subtle piece to that that is sort of missing. So even if they had segmented off that environment, a lot of their ability to operate, like you said, 45% of the fuel goes through there. Somebody actually has to pay for that. So there's a whole billing systems and everything else. And when you talk to a lot of people in the OT environment, they say, well, we'll just isolate from IT. And it's like, so are you going to answer the phone and say, ship me 50,000 barrels of crude, or is there an app for that? And of course, it's all these, we call it OT adjacent, like these business functions that are there in the IT environment to drive and support the business. You know, they don't, when's the last time you guys filled out an invoice? You don't do that. There's other departments that do that, right? But if you're not doing the work, there's nothing to sell. So it's there's a dependency on both. So did they cut it off because they couldn't sell the gas, or did they cut it off because they weren't sure? There's a bit of both.
So just some perspective, right? It was VPN, no MFA. That's where it all started, right? They got initial access. And I've said this before, right? What do? They got to break out of that system or move laterally. So there's tremendous opportunity for defenders to detect the activity in the environment and maybe not have to shut it down. But again, cautionary, I'm sure they went and evaluated that. Some other notes, it was 4.4 million in ransomware, right? They got 5% back from the FBI. But I think they were also fined millions. Like, I think there was a massive fine. So you're thinking, yeah, we got the money back. No, you didn't. Someone else, it got redirected, right? But talking about after, right? So they are compromised. Austin, what do you think? What are some good OT-specific incident response plans look like, right? And how they might differ from IT?
Yeah.
This was a lob. Like, I couldn't ask a question that's perfectly suited for Austin than that one.
Well, yeah, it was an interesting case, certainly, and I believe they did the right thing because they lost the ability to understand what was in the pipeline. It wasn't a direct operational impact from the dark side ransomware group. It was their ability to see what was in the pipe, what was in the line pack, what was getting delivered to customers. And if you don't have visibility into that, even though it's more of an IT system, you can't operate your pipeline. So they were really quick. They shut down right away, and they were able to come back within 15 days, which isn't terrible, but they would have been a lot faster had they had visibility, had they been able to really understand the overall impact. And if they had probably more planning around incident response, more of a exercise between IT and OT ahead of time, could have really helped them out. When you're working in an operational environment, it's very different than doing incident response in an IT environment. Often, you're under the gun to get that system online as quickly as possible because every hour is millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or it adds up real quick. So you're not too concerned about forensics. You're not too concerned about trying to figure out who did it. Just trying to get back online and trying to, more importantly, keep everyone safe, ensuring everyone can go home safely. So that's some of the key things you need to do in an ICS incident response plan. And it's not something that you write down and just put in a drawer somewhere. It's something that you need to practice, right? These two groups, the ICS folks and the IT folks, they don't always get along. They've had maybe some bad experiences in the past where the IT folks come up to the site and flip-flops or something like that, and they're running network scanning against their environment and knocking systems over, and that impacts the bonuses of people running the plant. That's their Christmas bonus going out the window with that downtime. So, there may be some resentment there. So you want to make sure before game day, you practice. You get those folks together who may have difficulty getting along. You got to exercise that together and make sure that, when that happens, because it's just a matter of when, it's not if, I'd say, you're prepared to run that playbook.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill C-26, right, was big talk. I know there was lots of sessions by people saying, get ready, Bill C-26 coming, and then they scrapped it, right? And now it's Bill C-8, but a lot of it still remains. Any thoughts on that? Any takeaways from the Bill C-8, formerly Bill C-26? I'll go Doug first.
I read it.
Yeah?
Yeah. 'Cause
Painful?
I'm that guy.
Yeah. Oh,
And then I summarized it with ChatGPT as well, just to make sure I understood what I read, because I'm not a lawyer. The parts that I took away were $10 to $15 million a day for a company that's found in breach of this. Yeah. My favorite part is where they're allowed to kick in the door and look around. That's kind of cool. The other big takeaway is there's 6 critical infrastructure elements, and guess what? For Alberta, power, oil and gas, we're in there. What's interesting compared to the TSA, which was very prescriptive, and just leave it at prescriptive. They say in C8 that you need a cybersecurity program for your environment. So they're already telegraphing this is not a one and done. This isn't like clean up your room and it'll stay clean forever. Build a program. And, close to my heart with the whole, cybersecurity podcast, enterprise risk thing, have risk assessment. And I've spoken with the CER folks a few times. We don't care what you do for a risk assessment. It must qualify as a risk assessment, but what methodology works for your company? And I've been in meetings where people have debated the merits of different risk assessment methodologies, and the answer is, do one. Rather than worry about it, just pick one and get going. You can always refine later. So do the risk management. So they were gearing them towards a methodology, but they left a little disclaimer, more to be revealed. So I think they're going to come back with more legislation, because in Europe they've definitely gone down that route with very prescriptive things. But the fines are real. They're saying this isn't voluntary anymore. So that's how I take it.
yeah, and I'll just add, the fines for the organization's one thing, but now C-level and directors are also accountable. And I think that's the scary thing. The individual could be fined $10,000 to $50,000. I think $50,000 or $25,000. Yeah, $50,000 per day. The individual, right? So you now have accountability. So if you don't have OT visibility, you might now. And critical infrastructure, right? It includes telecommunications. Sometimes we forget. We think pipelines. We think all the other things, but it also includes telecommunications as well. What do you think, Austin? Did I steal one of your thunders?
No, not at all. I've got a lot of thoughts on this.
You got 1 minute of thoughts.
Okay. Yeah. I see it as sort of a shield and a sword. Like the shield, you have to get that proactive cybersecurity program. You need to understand the infrastructure in your environment. You need to get that SBOM. You need to have that sort of supply chain management, which is good, very advanced. It seems very reactionary to the Typhoon, VoltSite kind of incidents we're seeing. So I like that. I don't like how they're putting all of the critical infrastructure, what they consider, critical, in one bucket, like we're in the same bucket, finance and communications and pipeline and electric. I don't think that's not going to fly. They haven't been really prescriptive about what that entails, but they're pretty clear about the fines, and the impact is pretty severe. And they can just kind of show up whenever they want and tell you what to do, which I don't think a lot of companies will enjoy. One of the things they're kind of interested in doing is asking you to rip out a particular vendor in your environment at a moment's notice. And if you fail to do that, there'll be massive fines. So it's one thing if it's Huawei, but if it's another thing if it's Cisco. What if they come up and they're like, all the Cisco stuff, you got to rip it out. Or
the internet. What do you mean?
Yeah.
You don't want the internet?
Or if it's operational impact, if they're like shut down the pipeline, shut down the grid, like they have that authority. And if you don't comply, big fines.
Yeah, scary stuff, but I think needed stuff, right? I think, again, we've got a lot of different frameworks and regulations, compliance, like these are all coming and intersecting with each other. Making sense of them all probably is not easy, but I think the accountability piece is the big advantage of this, right? Is now somebody knows that they might be fined or negligent, and even criminal. Like there's not just a fine; you could be criminally charged as well. That maybe you'll get the budget that you finally need to be able to do some of these things.
And it's secret as well. Like if you are told to do something, you can't talk about it. It's secret when you're asked to do these things. So it seems kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we don't want any more on that one. So, what are some of the most common gaps that you're still experiencing in OT? So, right, we know visibility is going to come up, but give 2 or 3, and then Austin, you add to it.
Okay, so yeah, visibility, all in on visibility. I think the second thing is, it's one thing to say I can see something, but do I understand how it's connected? So I've seen risk assessments in my own work where it's a PLC, therefore it's critical. It's like, no, not all PLCs are critical. And you know what? Maybe the switch in a safety system is the most critical thing, that sensor. So understanding the actual construction of how something gets done and where the bad thing is going to happen. And the Idaho National Labs has come up with this thing called consequence, CCE, like cyber-informed consequence, blah, blah, blah. But basically you walk your whole system and you figure out where the bad thing is going to happen that could be done by a digital means, and figure out if you can engineer your way around that somehow, some way. Because you're never going to patch all the things. You're never going to tap all the things. You're never going to respond fast enough. And some of this stuff was never meant to be in the environments that it's in. But it doesn't mean that we have to run it this way now. That's kind of the world we're in. So I think the visibility, and then the other is, you alluded to it. Last time I checked, when I walked into the building, I work for the same company that my OT peers do. And there are some meetings where that doesn't seem to be the case. So I think us working as a group to solve the thing of significant nation states with real adversarial intent and the resources are here to mess with us. Are we all in on defending or not?
Fair enough. Austin.
Yeah, one of the challenges we see today still is vulnerability management in ICS. It's really tricky. All these systems are often antiquated, old. Sometimes there is no patch for those vulnerabilities, or it's in a remote platform. So you kind of have to embrace that risk and understand that you may not be able to patch that for years. And how do you do that? Network visibility is a huge thing there. How do you know if your vulnerability is being exploited if you don't have eyes on it, if you don't have eyes on that device? So got to have that network visibility. A lot of customers we see still don't have a dedicated incident response plan for OT. We see a lot of segmentation issues still today in 2025.
Yep.
We see a lot of issues with remote access is a big one. Like there's many flavors of remote access too, and how to handle that properly. But visibility can help with all those things. It can help bolster those and give you those insights, to kick off the IR, to make sure the segmentation's working, to monitor for exploitations of those vulnerable devices.
Yeah, so knowing is half the battle. Where did I hear that before?
Yeah, that's right. You can't defend what you can't see.
Yeah. So other things too is maybe, and this may be going a little bit further as you advance, right? But true risk of vulnerabilities, not every vulnerability is a risk. And so make sure that you're prioritizing things that really matter. The other thing is configurations, right? Can we statically define what a configuration looks like? And then if there's changes or deviations at any point in time, can we get in front of it? So those are a couple of good opportunities as well. Remote access, funny enough, like it's almost like you read the questions before we got here. Remote access, we all know that everybody wants data out of OT, right? Data's the new oil or gold. But we also know that we need people to get into the environment to be able to manage and support it no matter where they are in the world. So, remote access is still a thing. Any comments around it? What are we doing better? What could we do better?
We are doing better. There was...
we, you? Or?
No, we as an industry.
Okay.
there are more choices than we used to have. Like 10 years ago, you pretty much had a Windows Jump server or a VNC box, and that was kind of it. And so there was an ISA meeting in Calgary last Thursday. And I was impressed with some of the commercial offerings that were there. It's like, this looks pretty well thought out and pretty low friction. It's still remote access, and the key is still going to be who's granting the authority to that account, and do you let everybody in as admin, or do you say you're in for these 3 hours to do this job on that piece of equipment, and you've actually got the infrastructure underneath it to support it? But to Austin's point earlier, a lot of this stuff doesn't necessarily support some of these whiz-bang features. So I think
Bang. I like whiz bang.
putting that, authority right here at an edge box and then saying this edge box has connectivity to these two things and that's the end of it. It looked like a neat way to kind of resolve some of that, but, a lot of details.
Austin,
Yeah, a lot of
thoughts
the
on it?
yeah, for sure. The vendors, they always need access into that equipment. Quite often, it's part of their contract.
How are the OT folks in the field? Like, are they Madonnas, like pre-Madonnas, like
It wa-
the OT team, like the field? The guys doing all the magic.
Oh, they're great. They're great. You bring them some donuts, and
Yeah.
everybody's happy. They're the salt of the earth. Good folks.
Fair enough.
But the remote access thing, a lot of vendors contractually require you to have it. But then these devices, like these Sierra wireless devices you put out there, like it's kind of in a gray area. No one really maintains them, and they sit around for years and years with critical vulnerabilities, and then people are using them for these. We're seeing a lot of this activity around these orbs or operational relay boxes that they're using these compromised remote access devices to punch holes into these energy environments, and also use to like relay attacks. So it's hard to do attribution when you run through a bunch of these remote devices. So you got to really be able to take ownership and track who is actively using remote access. There's so many RMM tools out there for remote monitoring and remote management. There's like AnyDesk and like Chrome desktop. You want to have eyes on that when those things are kicking off in your ICS environment. Like you want to know about it, because we often find these vendors will kick off remote access, or some operator will go home for the weekend and turn on Chrome remote desktop, and it opens you up to unnecessary risks, I'd say.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I think secure equipment access is something real now, and I think there is the transition in the market to go to zero trust outcomes, right? Using native internet-based secure protocols, and authenticating biometrics, MFA, right? All as conditions to get access to the system securely. And then more importantly, we're starting to see recorded sessions. So once you get into the system, it's automatically being recorded. So anything that the operator, technician, whatever does, somebody at least knows it was done, right? So yeah, all good points. So what about platforms? Are you seeing this whole thing around platforms really come to fruition? Platform-based security, and again, a little bit more focused on the OT side. Obviously, in IT, I think that transition in the market's kind of happening. But what do you think in OT?
I think like with any security product, vendors eventually figure out they need other stuff to go with it. I mean, your company for sure, they're masters at it. Oh, we're missing this piece and that, and they put it all together. So I think the size and scale and the reliability that we need, I don't think you want to try this at home. I think you want to engage a software vendor company, like Cisco, Microsoft, Palo. Like these are big companies that have the might to make stuff work. And, like these companies say, oh, I want best of breed. It's like, well, who's going to glue it all together? I'll take the second best of 8 things and they work flawlessly. Might be all right. So I'm a fan.
Yeah. Austin, your thoughts? Comments?
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, work for a platform company.
Oh, you do?
So yeah, but I mean,
Are your pieces integrated with each other?
We're working on that.
Yeah, and it's hard, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
you got called out right to the. Anyways,
No, it's hard, right? Like,
it
yeah.
is hard. It is hard.
And the problem's much larger than I anticipated going in. Like the scale of industrial and the amount of equipment out there it's staggering. It's incredible. Just the number of devices and vendors in the space. So it's a massive problem. And the market, we've been at it for 10 years almost, but the market's immature. They've got a ways to go. If you're buying a platform, be ready to be part of the journey because it's not going to go 100% smooth, no matter who you pick. It's an immature market. This is new, but you gotta do something. You gotta jump in, but you're gonna be along for the journey, I think. So make sure you the person you pick, make sure you like working with them.
Yeah. So I'll give a couple comments. I think platform doesn't mean one vendor. Platform means a platform that you can drive outcomes across multiple different systems. Sure, one vendor might provide a lot of it, right? But OT security will go much beyond maybe some of the components that they have, right? So from vulnerability management to patch management to, isolating and microsegmentation in the data or in the operational, all of those are pieces, right? So there is a ton of complexity. I think the industry as a whole, forget the manufacturer, is trying to do better with platforms. And you're starting to hear the term best of solution versus best of breed, right? Mm-hmm. All right, what about HMIs in the cloud? Cloud, everywhere is clouds. What do you think? Is it real?
Depends on what you need.
It depends. That's a dumb IT answer.
No, it's not. No, it's not a dumb
Always
IT.
depends, right? We hate that answer. Who likes that answer? Nobody.
Yeah, there we are. Okay. There's a consultant, right?
Yeah, they're all consultants, right? They're cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. It depends.
It depends. It depends on how long you can go without that information. If it's a trending thing like vibration monitoring, heck yeah, why not, right? But if it's, are we at critical temperature or not, I want that as close as possible.
Fair enough. Austin, any thoughts? Are you seeing some people moving towards cloud for HMIs or any operational elements?
Certainly for monitoring. I think that's very powerful. That data is gold, right? It's very valuable for any company to have that in the cloud and be able to do interesting stuff with it, with AI and models, LLMs and things like that. There's a lot of potential there, but the control aspect, people like to have someone local to hit the big red button. Not always possible, but remote control through a secure remote access solution, I think, is preferable to a cloud-based HMI.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing it, right? And now there's new vectors, new risks, right, that we have to consider that maybe OT didn't consider, right? Maybe these three did, right? But or four. I think there was 4 people in total. But now, I again, Rain Man beside me, right? Like the next question, AI, right? You just mentioned it, so I'm giving you kudos, like you're one step ahead of me.
It's like I read the questions or something. Yeah. That's great.
AI, are you seeing it? Or is it a real thing in OT? Are we starting to see it being leveraged in the edge of it all, anywhere in the environment?
I know we're kicking tires, and when I talk to vendors, they're telling me things like F-35 fighter jets are using, local models to do the sensor checks on the jet before it leaves the boat, that kind of stuff. So this distributed model thing coming down, I think it makes sense, and I think it was the first talk this morning where they were talking about control over your hardware, control over your model, control over your prompts. But it still doesn't sound like determinism to me. They said you had like the squiggly equals, roughly equal, and it's like, no, I want it exactly deterministic when it comes to certain real-time systems. So I think better quality sensors, smarter control, but I don't think it's going to be the final control.
Interesting. Any thoughts on that?
So I see a lot of BY, bring your own model, BYOM, in play today, where you can hook into an API. And
did you just make that up?
No, it's a thing. It's a thing, I swear.
That's the thing.
BYOM, yeah. So that and that works well for companies because they have policies around what LLMs you can use, what you can't use. But I wouldn't give control over to an LLM of a critical process. I'm sure we'll see some regulation before too long preventing that from occurring.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think autonomous systems, big trucks, maybe in a field of sand with oil, might be autonomously working through.
Maybe.
Yeah, right. So I think it does exist. I think you're going to start seeing more and more models being leveraged, again, with caution at first. But here's the interesting thing. I don't know if, and again, I might be wrong here, but you know the Tesla robot. I don't know if you've seen the latest video, but I thought that robot was a human inside like a costume. I didn't think it was the robot, but it was the robot. Like that's how fluid it moved. And I think he's predicting there's like something like 3 times the amount of robots than humans that are going to be in the world, right? 3 times the population are going to be robots, right? And that's all going to be AI. So I think it's coming fast. I think it's scary. I don't think that we're putting any measures on the security side. And some of it doesn't even exist, right? You don't even have the capability in some environments. So I think get ready for that.
All right. As a guy who worked on those trucks, I'm not sure there was still real-time sensors there.
Yeah. Fair enough. But you can use the model to make the decisions at,
Yep. Faster.
high speed. Yeah. I think we're close to the end, folks, but let's talk about maybe how do we grow focus in the operational environment. So is there, there's a tremendous room of IT folks, some rock star OT folks. What can IT and OT do to kind of bring things together? You mentioned that earlier, right? A lot of times we're still not seeing the teams come together, but they walk in, they have the same badge, they have the same goal, but we're not coming together. Is there anything we can do? And is any of those skills transferable? Like,
I think so. This is another critical infrastructure company I worked for, and we were doing something not quite as controlling as the trucks, but when I was working with the people in this environment, I think there's things we can bring as IT people who've been down there with the malware and the, getting networks to talk and stuff like that, that we understand certain things about the operating systems that maybe those could be used. And I think for us, the ability to understand what's a solid practice from a hardening perspective. And the other one is this whole cattle versus pets thing. A lot of bespoke configurations in these OT environments. And a lot of that stuff could be rebuilt or remediated using automation tools and things like Docker containers and stuff like that kind of make it a little easier to roll back. You just go to the last known good image. And it was at the last time we did this at one of BSides, the COVID thing, and it was Paul Smith that said, because I think I asked what would you change one thing? And he said configuration management, and that really got the gears going. Like, what if there was a GitHub for your SCADA system, and you could go back through every change that was made instead of looking at a logbook? That's a neat idea.
yeah, and I think, listen, IT, they patch systems, system hygiene forever, right? OT, nobody takes a shower. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But your systems run forever, right? They run forever because that's what they're meant to do. And so you don't care necessarily about patching it uptime. But I think IT can bring in those methods into OT, and then you're going to say, wait a minute, stupid, right? If you patch that system, it's going to take a safety control system offline, and somebody might die. Right? So you both coming together will say, okay, wait a minute, availability is pretty important over here. Maybe I should slow down a little bit and talk about ways to maybe make the environment a little bit more resilient so we could do the patch for only the critical things. Austin?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I mean, we see a huge skills gap in ICS-OT, and if you look at all the gray hairs up at the front of the stage here, like, that group is getting older, and they're going to look at retiring here pretty soon. So there's, maybe not these guys. These guys are young, but
So you had to sit too close and say, I'm OT. Now the light's on.
But I think with our last question as well, the AI, it can help close that skill gap quite a bit. It's a lot of esoteric kind of knowledge in ICS, and having AI can help accelerate people in IT who are interested in coming over, and people from OT who want to learn the IT side. Like, it can really accelerate that learning and operationalize their abilities a lot faster. So think there's always opportunities.
Yeah.
We need the help. We need the skills out there.
Yeah. So come hang out. Let's be friends, right? IT, OT. Last question, and I'll start with Austin. You can feel free to jump in. We got like 4 minutes left. You talk about, what about threat intelligence? I mean, obviously important. OT, a little different animal. Is it the same as IT threat intelligence? Should you be sourcing it differently? What are your thoughts?
At the end of the day, you want your threat intelligence to be actionable. It needs to have something that's applicable that you can use. You need to understand what the threat is, what the impact is, and how you can do something about it. And IT, it doesn't really give you that in your ICS environment. So you need to know who are the people, who are the groups who are targeting ICS, and what are they doing? What are their techniques and tactics? What sectors are they targeting? I think that can really go a long way with operationalizing your cyber threat intelligence for ICS. The IT stuff doesn't really give you that lens.
Do you see not so much threat intelligence, but just knowledge of the adversary? Do you see MITRE ATT&CK framework being a source of information that's specific on ICS, or is that more of, yeah, not really? I don't see it, actually being leveraged in industry.
100%. Yeah, we use that. There's a specific MITRE for ICS that is leveraged. That it really provides that nomenclature, that like a Wikipedia of terms and techniques and tactics that you can have a conversation and know you're talking about the same thing with two different threat intelligence. I mean, the one thing that two threat intelligence officers can agree on is that the third one's wrong. So it's really hard to get a consensus in that community.
Fair enough. Doug?
Yeah, I would 100% agree that, yeah, MITRE, all in on the MITRE, and the ICS specific one is not only the breakdown of the numbers, they're different, but even the impacts and the actors. Believe it or not, if you read to the bottom of the page, there's a lot of good stuff and some links at the bottom you should read. And yeah, I've consumed all the flavors, and OT specific intel for OT is night and day from the IT stuff. I don't find any value in the IT itself.
Yeah, there might be some cross value in the sense of if it's an operating system that's Windows and is critical, then obviously IT would have some good data points around it, but it may not have an understanding of the operational process and the impact of that environment. MITRE ATT&CK, for those that are as not familiar with it, the thing I love about it is based on real world. It's not the what if stuff, right? This is based on something that's already happened. This is how the adversary's seen success, and then they continue to rinse and repeat. And you can take that knowledge and then build in your defensive capabilities, right? Whether you can prevent or just detect into an organization pretty seamlessly. So I love it. So any final thoughts, guys? I don't have any.
Oh, I think it's great, even though it was the talk after lunch and there were people yawning. Most of them fell asleep. Thanks for coming out. And it's important that we get as many people thinking about this, because there's not only jobs out there, there's a real need.
Awesome.
I got nothing to top that. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all about you guys anyway. Wait, Prashant? No. All right, Prashant. All right.
Is there even a Q&A in this?
No, we've become friends now, so I'm now entitled.
Very simple, one statement question. Would LLMs be the new Skynet?
Possibly.
You spoke earlier about what control that your car gives you. You can't drive.
Oh, yeah.
So how much control are we going to give AI in this?
That is interesting. So I got a car that's got a lot of this, automated stuff. So if I go too far, it says, hey, wait, and it automatically steers, gets me in the lane, right? If I back up, it's chirping. It tells me to take a coffee break because I signal before I'm too far in front of the car. But I'm just signaling, right? I haven't merged yet, but it's squawking saying, oh, you can't do that. I'm going, I know, I'm waiting. But I was thinking where bad could happen. So I had the door open. I just wanted to pull up a little bit, right, into a parking spot. And it wouldn't let me. But what if I was, some female late at night trying to get away from somebody that's trying to attack me? Or male, it doesn't matter who it is, right? And I would have been panicking because the car wouldn't move, forget to shut the door, right? And, maybe that's the last conversation I have. So I think you're right. Like, AI is good, but there's these nuances that come up that you don't even think about. Like the manufacturer's thinking, no, you shouldn't drive with the door open. You're right, but I'm going to be murdered. I'm okay with that risk, and I can't override it. Anyways, thanks everyone.
Thank you.